Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room. This is the second hour of the show. We begin the show at 6 a.m. and we conclude at 10 a.m. every weekday morning on Spice FM, online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And we are now on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. A very good morning to our audience on TV. This is your radio experience on TV. CT Muga as we begin today's proverb.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Do not allow the belly to make you useless. I presume they meant your own belly.
Well, whose belly would they be referring to if not my
Somebody
own?
else's. Do not allow
To
your
each-
neighbor's belly.
To each their own belly.
All right. Do not allow the belly to make you useless.
Yes.
Higher. Let's talk about bellies in this time of COVID-19. So Friday, the president comes up with the measures. Not comes up with. The president announces the measures that are to be followed during this time to contain the spread of COVID-19 in this third wave. Among those measures, of course, is cessation of movement. And he says, look, here it is. We are seeing rapid infection rising. So what we need to do is contain movement. And because these 5 counties are where the disease is basically the highest in terms of infection, let us say that this is going to be declared a disease zone and it shall be a one zone where people shall not come in or out. Then the other measures of, okay, let's stop SGR, let's stop flights, let's stop people moving in, into and out of. Let's reduce the number of people who go into meetings. Let's avoid as much as possible interactions by also saying that eateries, you shall not sit down and eat. You shall not have a drink at a joint. You shall only do takeaway service. Reminiscent of last year, which had a huge impact on one sector, especially the hospitality sector. We're talking about hotels, tourism hotels, other hotels. We're talking about the entertainment industry. We're talking about the bars, restaurants, pubs and restaurants. All of them combined make the hospitality sector. So just when they were starting to recover out of this, we go back in there. Is there something that could have been done to ease the pain that they are about to experience? Because they are definitely about to experience a lot of pain. Some of the leading lights in this sector immediately spoke out and said, okay, maybe there could have been a better way of dealing with this. Maybe there could be other ways in which we could actually address this, make sure that we are fighting COVID-19 together, but also make sure that we safeguard the livelihoods, especially of the people who rely on the tourism sector. Mohammed Hersi is one of them. He's the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, and he joins us now on the line because he's been talking loudly about this, and he's been very vocal on the matters that are taking place. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and the entire team. Warm greetings from Mombasa.
Good morning
Good
to
morning.
you. Mombasa,
Good morning.
kunyesha. Nairobi is rainy this morning.
Mombasa is just calm and there's overclouds.
Okay.
But the morning sun that we're used to is not there. So we call it is good. It is cool. We are fine. Only that business is not that good. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, immediately after the president made the announcement on the new containment measures, this had a direct impact on your industry. Just so that we get to understand from the person who is actually on the ground, what is this immediate impact?
Okay, firstly, as usual, on behalf of Kenya Tourism Federation, I'd like to thank you and for this invite. Now, tourism is about movement from point A to B to C. Tourism is about spending a night away from home and touring places. Now, Nairobi is a capital city and is the hub of Eastern Africa. Now, if you decide to lock or there's a cessation of movement in Nairobi and the environs, then it basically means that Nairobi can not feed the rest of the country. Even our national carrier is domiciled in Nairobi. So when the cessation of movement is done and the notice is so short, then it becomes very difficult because keep in mind, number one, we have international tourists who are already touring the country. Then we have domestic tourists who I really, really like to thank because they came in big time to support us. With their families, they're all across the country. Some were checking in that morning in a hotel stay in Lamu or you're checking in somewhere in Diani or far-flung places like Samburu, and then you're told you need to get back to Nairobi. So the notice period is virtually not there, and it has caused a lot of inconvenience and a lot of pain to people who actually heeded the same call by government to say that, look here, go support your country. Go support your domestic, your tourism industry. Now, what we would have expected is to say, you know what, folks, in the next 5 days, find your way back until further notice, that sort of thing, And then if you got 2 days remaining of your stay, fine. You clear it and you move away. And the way it was handled for us, it's unfortunate and regrettable, but we can't talk much about what has happened now. It's more important to deal with the way forward and what are we going to do. So
I think it's important, Mohammed, to talk about what happened, because, and the question that we were asking ourselves yesterday is, before such advice is given to the president, that this is what we advise you, Mr. President, let's do this, isn't there consultation with the various stakeholders? For example, Kenya Tourism Federation or KEPSA, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, which you also are a member of. Isn't there such conversation?
We have such conversations, and there were 2 documents from KEPSA. The first one, which was still a draft form, found its way to the media and to the general public, which included cessation of movement, and that was more of a document that was the previous one that we used. Then the second one that was released was the one where the cessation of movement was actually deleted or removed. Because we were not for the idea of cessation of movement. We fully support more controls, because keep in mind, why are we here today? Why are we having a rise in the number of positive cases? Around January, February, the entire January, February, political rallies came back like this, not tomorrow. You think actually we are holding elections next week or next week or next week? Guys were crossing this country like this, not tomorrow. And of course, Kenyans came out in large numbers to listen to these politicians. And breaking all the rules that supposed to have kept us safe away from COVID. But blaming them will not help us at the moment. That's the way things are. We just need to, deal with it. But the problem is that the people who suffer the most are the ones who actually followed the COVID guidelines and protocols.
Right.
In tourism industry, including our own guests, we sanitized, we washed our hands, we kept social distance. We did everything we could. But today, we are the ones suffering the most. And in turn, the same government will suffer because they will not be able to collect enough taxes.
Mohammed, I have to ask you, though, is it possible with the kind of, we're going into, in holiday period with children being out of school, is a time when a lot of parents would have, a lot of families then would have traveled, across the country for a moment. Would it be possible, practically and honestly, would it be possible to have this kind of travel where people are actually regarding the measures, or even with the tighter measures? Would it be possible to have a tourism period with COVID as it is?
We are not the only ones dealing with COVID. Many other countries are dealing with COVID globally, and they've taken different measures to help themselves. Firstly, we support government in all its efforts. And I honestly don't envy government in their position, because they have to take some calls that may not be palatable, that is not comfortable with the general public or the general businesses. I appreciate that. But if we are consulted more, we also have practical solutions. But you don't come in and close, let's say, Nairobi within a very short, notice. That will not work. That is an issue we've got with. Now, we've presented a memorandum to government where we've said, look here, allow the international tourists who are already in the country to complete their safaris and their itineraries. Simply because the international tourists, before they arrive here, they take a PCR test, which is not more than 96 years old.
Hours.
96 hours, old.
Yeah.
Which means you're dealing with somebody without the virus. And remember, this test is also not cheap. In some of the European countries, you can pay as high as $250 to get that test. And you're looking probably at a family of 4, that takes you back $1,000. That's a lot of money. And tourism today is becoming quite an expensive venture. Now, somebody has landed in Nairobi, and you're telling them, you know what, Mr. XYZ, you cannot leave Nairobi and just get holed up here for the next couple of days and then go back. It doesn't work like that. Now, tourism service vehicles, let me, take up that. Our staff were all tested before we were licensed to operate again. And we also do consistent testing almost every week. My own company, we've done almost 4 tests now. The hotels I run, the same thing. And all our member associations, we do that. Let me tell you, we also calculate our own positivity rate. And we are never beyond 2%. In fact, we hover just between 1.5 and 2%, which is below the WHO numbers. We follow the guidelines and protocols to the letter.
So, Mohammed, it's possible to have these touristy activities in the country right now, while regarding all measures and maybe tightening it a little bit. It is possible to have them around the country with no major danger. Is that what you're saying?
There's nothing impossible. To answer you, it is possible. And in our proposal, this is what we've told government. We've said, can we now introduce rapid testing for the domestic traveler? And let me tell you, so many of our clients are saying, you know what, give me the test. I've already done the test elsewhere. I can do it again. I want to go with my family to Diani. I want to go with my family to Mombasa. Please test me. And what will that do? Overnight, we'll get more Kenyans getting tested. And we'll even have a bigger, result in terms of the population numbers that have been tested. And that's a win-win. Instead of saying, you know what, nobody can enter, nobody can leave Nairobi. You don't do that. If it happened in March 2020, I would say yes, because we did not know much about the virus. But 1 year down the line, we know so much about the virus that we cannot continue using the same formula that we used in 2020 a year ago.
Unfortunately,
Mr. An antigen test for it.
Sorry, please go ahead, Mr. Hersi.
The rapid test takes less than 15-20 minutes, and it's between 96-98% accurate. It's good enough, It's just like the HIV ELISA test that you carry out, the rapid test. So here we are saying close everything. Now, if we say, look here, for the domestic travelers, please subject them to that and let them board the aircraft. Because when we say we are requesting the airlines that operate out of Wilson to take the tourists to the Mara, remember, a tourist doesn't have to be a Caucasian. A tourist is anyone who is traveling. Even that aircraft cannot be filled up by the international visitors only. We also need the domestic traveler. So subject the domestic traveler to that simple test, and they will be allowed to travel. They can do the test the previous day. Now, what Ministry of Health needs to do is to come up with a foolproof system that once you've done the test, there is a barcode, and it's not just a piece of paper that anybody can print and sign, which is exposed to abuse. And you know what? Business will be able to operate. When we do that, only serious people who want to travel are the ones who are going to say, you know what, I want to travel. If you want to go and see your farm in Nyeri or to do some business in Nyeri, you should be allowed. If you are able to do the test and you can move out of Nairobi. What I will imagine, and this, we need to be radical in our thinking. The roadblocks where we have the policemen. Alongside those roadblocks, why don't you invite the laboratories, be it Lancet, be it Good Life, and you say, you know what, you want to go to Nyeri? It's that bad? Okay, fine. Go do the test. And on the spot, somebody will say, yeah, let me carry out the test. Number one, you're helping these pharmaceutical companies. People are in business. You'll allow Mr. Kama also to go to Nyeri or Ochieng to go to Kisumu as well. Instead of saying, you know what, we are locking you back, and if you're outside Nairobi, you'll be in problems. You will not be allowed back in. Now, that is where we have a problem. Remember, it is 13 months since the virus came to Kenya, and surely we can handle it in a better way.
Actually, the unfortunate thing is that if you're referring to the practice that we have seen in the recent days, it seems to be the practice all over the world. It's not just in Kenya. Somehow, much as we know a great deal about the virus, there's a great deal more that we actually don't know. And the moment the variant and the variants and the story of the variants came into being, you see, Nairobi has this problem. It's a hub. It's a travel hub for people within the continent. It's a travel hub for people who come out of this continent and want to go to other parts of Africa. So the likelihood of variants coming into the country, because remember, the virus doesn't travel on its own. It doesn't have a boarding pass. It doesn't get onto a plane. It boards with the individuals who come into it. So Nairobi, unfortunately, is in a position where it is likely to be a very serious incubating center for the virus. Secondly, if you look at even the country, the whole country coalesces around Nairobi. People from all over the other counties will come to Nairobi, in and out of Nairobi. Nairobi is the one place everybody comes to in and out of more than any other place, even as they go into other places. I agree with you completely when you say one could have chosen other methods of doing this and one could have consulted, because this is something that I can see you feel strongly about, and it is clear you people, if you are consulted, whatever advice you gave clearly wasn't taken into consideration. We had this discussion yesterday, and my colleagues were of the view that, and listen to other people, that perhaps the government doesn't know what it's doing. I was of the view that the government knows exactly what it's doing. But what I'm wondering is, to what end? Like you, to what end? But if we were to go by what has been happening in other parts of the country, the moment there is a spike, by the way, we knew of the spike, we knew it was going to happen, and even now we are being told the worst is not yet with us. The worst will come towards the end of May. We know. So under those circumstances, Mr. Hersi, it may seem draconian when you consider what the government is doing, but unfortunately, I don't think there are very many other choices in reality.
Let me comment on the issue of the hub. You'll notice that our international airport is still open. And the reason why it's open is because you will not be allowed to get here if you have not carried out PCR test and you have the certificate, which is verified through the all the system that we put in place as a country, which is actually global under WHO. So anybody arriving at JKIA will be free of the virus. So we're no longer looking at outside in virus, but right now we are at a stage of local transmission. That's why we haven't closed our airports. And when you say we are a hub, I'm afraid we are no longer the hub. Ethiopia now is the hub, where they handle 13 million tourists, or rather travelers, transiting, arriving, and name it. And they have not closed, and they're also doing the same measures. We handle now less than 7 million or even 6 million. The issue is that, yes, there are many variants, the virus is mutating, but as long as you have done the test, then it means you don't have the virus. Now, locally, we also need to put systems which is possible. And you know what? People are saying, please test us. And by the way, personally, I've done 3 tests. So there are many people willing to be tested. And if they are happy to be tested, please allow them. Even this antigen rapid testing, some countries, even in the developed world, like Switzerland and Poland, are accepting. For instance, we are handling a charter from Poland. We are now receiving a charter from Romania in Mombasa. We are expected to receive another one from Ukraine. All these people arriving in Kenya have taken the PCR test and they are holding a negative result. Then on number 2, over 70% of these arriving clients have already been vaccinated. So you're dealing with somebody who's been vaccinated, somebody who is even holding a PCR certificate, and you're telling him you cannot go around the country to tour, on tourism. Because Kenyans, I've seen in social media, was saying, but that is discrimination.
Yeah.
But my message to them is this. That is phase one. We are dealing with the ones who already in the country who already have a PCR certificate and they're negative.
Mm-hmm.
So the proposal we have made is, please subject the domestic traveler also to the same test. So that you can continue with commerce and we can continue with business. Because you cannot say after 2 weeks the virus will be gone and we can go back to business again. Well, we very well know what actually caused this particular upset was the political rallies. Let's be honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But
Actually,
again,
Mr. Hersi, it wasn't just the political rallies.
yes.
The opening of schools contributed significantly. One of the things that is true about the virus, it doesn't quite affect young children the way it affects grown-ups. And children are actually part of the group of people who are called super carriers. But what you say about the political rallies, I agree completely. They contributed significantly. But they were not the only contributors.
They were the super spreaders. So,
Yes.
Mohammed, as we conclude this conversation, a raft of proposals that you've made. So number one is allow domestic travelers, domestic tourists to undergo a test before embarking on their tour. What's the other proposal that you've made?
Actually, if we do that, we strongly believe that we can salvage a bit of Easter, and it is possible. It can be done. And you know what? We'll be the first country to do something like that. And number two, the other proposal we've made, for the international traveler, let us not inconvenience them. But number one, it took us a long time to get where we are to try and convince people to come back to Kenya. What we want is allow them entry because, after all, JKA is open. In the absence of allowing them to move around the country, then it means you might as well close the airport because it's pretty useless. Okay? Now, we need that foreign exchange badly. Look at our shilling today. It has been beaten. It's really facing serious crisis because we're not getting forex coming in. We want to bring that forex, and people are willing to go through the test. People are willing to spend more money to come to Kenya. People love Kenya. People want to come here. Please allow them so that we can continue doing business. And number two, the tour drivers and the personnel who are handling these tourists have all been tested. So you've got a van of 7 people. These are all people who are all COVID-19 negative.
Yeah.
And we should not throw the baby with the bathwater. Now, coming to hotels and restaurants, and this is our appeal again that we've made. We've said, please allow sit-in dining. At the moment, we've stopped all that, including freestanding restaurants on high street. Please allow them also to have sit-in dining, where you can go and have your lunch or you can have your dinner, just not only takeaways. Because these same establishments have also put on very stringent measures, okay? When it comes to dining, social space. You can even go to basic Javas, go to basic cafeterias. You'll see it, let alone the classified hotels. Now, let me ask you this. If it is safe to go shopping, and you're virtually brushing shoulders with people in the aisles as they're shopping, you're lining up, your shopping is being touched by that shop attendant. Every single item you have purchased, you have a cashier who is touching every item you purchased. Yet nobody is talking about supermarkets. Nobody is talking about that cashier being tested whether it's positive or negative.
Or the
and
markets.
they're continuing as business as usual. Oh, yes, absolutely. So why are you saying that you can do business in Wakulima market where traders are just running over each other? But you say, you know what? Going to Java will be a problem.
Or
going to
those
have
traders
lunch.
cannot go to their kibanda to eat.
Absolutely. Those are some of the things we are, and then they go out and in all those kibandas that have no regard for any company. So I think
Mohammed, just
we need to be careful.
stay on the line a bit longer. I know you have another meeting coming up, so just stay on the line a bit
No
longer as we
problem.
take
You
this
still
break.
have time. You still have time.
All right. We're asking what the hospitality sector would require in terms of support during this lockdown. Hersi tells us that a number of proposals that you've already come up with. Number one is allow domestic tourism and domestic travel by just ensuring that there is PCR testing that takes place for domestic travelers, or even random testing, rapid testing. Allow international tourists who already arrive at JKIA with a COVID negative certificate to continue into other parts of the country. This had been a communication that had come up even from other airlines. But the KCAA yesterday issued another statement clarifying that no. Flights domestically into or out of the one zone of the 5 counties shall not take place. Okay. The other proposal that you've just been telling us, Mohammed, is with regards to restaurants and other eateries, and you're recommending a sit-in dining. Now, if we do that, how are we really going to be fighting COVID-19? So yes, we cannot say that because Wakulima market traders are mingling freely in Wakulima market, then we should allow the same traders to go and sit at a restaurant or at an eatery somewhere and eat. Surely we should be taking some measures at some point.
Eric, as a tourism industry, we've taken all the measures. Today, if you go to any hotel, you realize that we practice social distancing to the letter. All the staff and all our guests are masked up. You will notice that there is hand washing stations right at the entrance. In fact, a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants had to change their setup. We never used to have washing stations unless you go to the washroom. All that is now in place. So if other sectors of the economy are operating, and I gave you the example of supermarkets, I'm giving you the examples of the vegetable market, or let's even go to the bus station and the matatu terminal. That is why, as a tourism industry, now we are actually requesting the government, can they start doing smart testing? Because we don't have all the money to test everybody. Let's do the testing by sector-wise. And you tell us, this particular week, the tests are conducted, well, let's say 3,000 or 4,000 sampling. This is the positivity rate from supermarket staff. This is the positivity rate for the hotels and restaurants. And this is the positivity rate for the matatu terminal at the Tirum or Nyamakima. At the moment, we don't know. We are just shooting in the dark. But I'll tell you for free that hotels and restaurants classified who have all signed up and who have all been licensed again to operate and using the 42-page guidelines and protocols that we worked with government to implement that has been copied by other East African countries is the least place that you're going to catch the virus. I can tell you that for free. And all we are saying is, let us not be the guys who always been thrown under the bus, for heaven's sake. Not because we are careless. All we were saying is that we've done all the measures. I'm just giving you the example of supermarkets right now.
So, Mr. Hersi, do I hear you to be saying that you actually feel like you're being punished for doing the right thing?
Actually not being punished. The thing is that people may not realize the impact because the people who are affected is tourism and travel. When you say cessation of movement, the supermarket is still open. The matatu is still moving from one estate to the other, packed, and they're packing people like sardines. It's an issue of enforcement, let's face it. And also Kenyans. Why will you go into matatu that's supposed to take 30 people and you've been packed there, 20 of you, and you're accepting? And I am telling you for free, and I can bet, if we did today test on the matatu crew, the positivity rate will be so high that you'll be told when you're getting into this matatu, you stand a 50% chance of catching the virus because they have not taken the measures that we have taken.
So why do you think then that the tourism sector is usually number one? Because, you know, the assumption is that when you hear tourism, you think Mombasa and where the beach is and then where safari is. But then you're looking also at the hospitality sector as well, restaurants, bars and such. Why do you think that is the first port of call when it comes to a tightening of measures that the government goes to? Why do you think so?
You see, I don't think really the government is really targeting hotels per se, but because you've said cessation of movement, how do you get to a hotel? You have to move. You see? But the supermarket and all these other places are listed under essential services. They will still get their cooking oil and unga or sima through those road barriers because it's essential services. But for travelers, we are dealing with human beings. So we are saying, if a pass can allow commodities go through those barriers, then for heaven's sake, let's test the people who also want to travel to go and stay in hotels.
To go across
because
the
the
barriers.
stuff have been tested. Oh, yes. So that we can allow these people to travel and continue doing business.
In addition
And it's
to
possible.
in addition to your
It's possible.
proposals,
Yeah.
there could be other proposals that would come in terms of financial support, like looking at last year and the stimulus package and the money that had been, extended to the hospitality sector. First of all, I don't know how many of the players in the hospitality sector have been able to access these funds of the stimulus package. Was it 2 billion shillings or was it 10 billion shillings that was made available to the sector?
It was 3 billion, came down to 2 billion. But what I like to say is that close to about 60-70% are the ones who've been able to access the funding. For instance, one of the conditions is for you to access the fund, you have to have majority shareholding, 51% Kenyans. We have a lot of companies here that may not necessarily have 51%, but they've been in this country for the last 30, 40 years. They employ Kenyans. They've been taxes to Kenyan government, but they've just been denied because we've said 51% has to be Kenyan, shareholders. But you know what? We are not even asking for financial support right now. We are not even asking for that. All we are saying is please give us enabling environment. That's all we are asking. And we will be able to contribute more to the economy. Keep in mind that our economy itself is not doing well. If we were in a general ward, now we've just been pushed to the high dependency unit. And all we are saying is that just allow us to operate, but operate within a particular framework so that you don't lock down and you don't say cessation of movement and there's no leeway whatsoever, even when we have such systems in place. And a good one, I've told you, we are allowing international travelers who are getting into the country because a year ago, we didn't have PCR testing. Now we have. That's why international tourists are able to arrive here. Now, if they can get here and you've allowed them in here, why are you not allowing them to fly to the Mara and leave some dollars behind? That's what we are saying. And then another thing that we are asking for is vaccination of tourism players. We are in the front line. And one of the ways to get the confidence of the international traveler today, and even our domestic travelers, if somebody said, my entire airline staff have been vaccinated, you feel confident. And there are several countries that have come forward and say, you know what, first line, we're actually giving priority to tourism players. And let me tell you this, when we are vaccinating a nurse or a clinical officer, and we say they are in the front line, do you know those guys are already in PPEs? Do you know a hotel employee who is a room steward handling a lot of wet surface doesn't even have that kind of protection? So who is more exposed, a hotel employee or a nurse who is working in a hospital environment? Or a waiter who is handling the plate that you've used, that's all wet. So why is it that we are saying a nurse is a frontliner while a waiter is not? Yet a nurse is actually protected because she's actually fully kitted in PPE. So what we are saying, actually, hotel employees and all these check-in counters by airlines, those people are seriously those are frontline workers.
Mohammed,
and in fact, we don't have the benefit. We don't have the benefit of putting that PPE. You'll scare people off. Can you imagine if I'm full PPE stabbing you in a dining? It won't work.
Of course. Stay on the line, Mohammed. Mohammed Hersi is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Let's now bring in MP for Kisumu East constituency, the Honorable Shakeel Shabbir, who is a member of the Finance Committee of the National Assembly. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Latte, Fondu, and City.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Now, Mheshimiwa, among the things...
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Among the things that we want to talk about, and we've been talking about, is what is it that the government can do to cushion the vulnerable during this time? Now, with this second stringent lockdown, what is it that the government can do? Now, you sit in Parliament. A big part of the role of Parliament is taxation or even offering relief. So is there a conversation that's already happening within your committee members or other arms of the National Assembly looking at what can be done?
Yes. We've not had a specific sitting on this right now, but when they wanted to pull back the relief back in December, we were most upset about it because we felt that as a finance committee, we felt that there is no short-term solution to this particular long-term problem. So, and then we put, the government did have some tax reliefs and some other economic stimulus packages. But that hardly took less than 6 months or whatever, and it was pulled back. The situation that we feel right now is that having come now to a stage 3, I think the third outbreak, what we would want to suggest, and we're looking at it to call a special sitting, and I'm asking our Vasta Finance Committee Chairman, Honorable Wanga, if she can call a meeting on Zoom, that we recommend that the tax measures that took place earlier in the year 2000 should be returned. The VAT should go back down. Although in the truth of it, though VAT went down, the cost of goods never did go down. But the other one, which is very major, is that the fuel prices, the ERB, which was put up just recently, there's been a great amount of concern as to why that fuel price went up, and that was to raise taxes. So I think those are the sort of things that we need. The other one, of course, we are finding, which has come back with a venom, is the Credit Reference Bureau. They have now started blacklisting a lot of small-time loans. I think that was a very effective one way of trying to get funding back on. Not saying that you don't pay the loans, but the blacklisting was one which was a bit of a relief. Likewise with the banks, the bigger players like the tourism industry, etc. They were also given something. The bank was also asked to give relief on repayment of loans for a 6-month period. Or was it 3 months? The banks made a lot of noise about it, but the government insisted, and we did get that relief. But that went only for a short time. Now, those are the sort of things we would like. I mean, the bigger hotels and the bigger players who are in fact employing a number of people. If they have
practically, Shakeel, what is the probability of, number one, you getting your word out to the committee getting a moment so that this can actually be discussed by the National Assembly to address this is an immediate issue. Is it possible for Parliament to actually convene in these times of COVID, say in the next 2 weeks, to actually discuss these things?
You see, the convene. Okay, we are going on recess. Nothing stops us from communicating, meeting on Zoom. We've had Zoom meetings before, and that's where things can take a change. Now, let's not be negative about this. Let me, or rather pessimistic about this. I want to give you an example of how things happened very quickly. There was a UK-Kenya trade deal, if you remember.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, we remember it.
On Thursday morning, was it a Thursday or something? We were meeting we were called, we had a breakfast meeting with some civil society. That is the economic group. We are called we have a special economic group led by Honorable Jude Jomo. There were 6 of us. We met in the morning. We were given this thing. We took this thing through to the speaker. It was meant to have come on a special sitting. It was meant to be in the afternoon to be confirmed. We stopped that. We then had it worked out for 6. We had 2 weeks of hard work on it. Now I think it's possible. We have the economic stimulus group that we, as I said, which is our very short, sharp attack group. where we would want to take this, and I'll be speaking to our chair, Honorable Jude Jomo, and others. There's a very strong group there: Jude Jomo, KJ, Steposares, and a very active group. And then, of course, our finance committee is also very active, and we'll be talking to our chair to see what we can do. I think the issue really is it's not going to take place in next 1 week or so, but I think this issue of calling the whole thing and getting tax relief and other economic relief packages on board is something that we should do and we must try.
Sure. Mwashimwa, I mean, listening to Mohammed Hersi this morning and talking about things that we don't need in 2 months. We need these solutions now. This relief is understood, but this relief is needed now. These conversations need to be taking place, and even if it's a place where you are giving people some kind of hope, it needs to go beyond having a conversation. So, from where you are looking at it, is this a conversation that's going to be had, or is this something that's going to be done in terms of solutions or things that can be provided for Kenyans who are in need of it today?
The conversation has been continuing. It hasn't stopped. If you talk about the finance committee, that conversation, every time we meet, the first thing we are talking about is what we're going to do about the cost of fuel, what we're going to do about this tax hikes back. So the conversation is there. The situation is that we now need to zero in on because the Wananchi are complaining. Our tax department are saying we haven't got money and we must raise the money. I think there has to be some sort of rationale, and that's where I was thinking where the president was able to make a statement in the morning. And things took place in the evening. That is because the president has those mechanisms.
I'm not sure whether you heard what Mr. Hersi was saying, but if you listen, if you did, what he's saying is rational. It is easy to understand. Now, what can a committee such as the one that you are in do to help people like Mr. Hersi and the organization, the people he represents?
Now,
yeah. What can you do?
Now, you see that now we have a committee on that. We work on committees, unfortunately. We work on. We have a committee. Finance committee used to take care of tourism as well. But I think the best thing that we can do now, as I said, is our special economic caucus that we have, which crosses over a number of committees. And I think after our telephone call is over, I'll be talking to our chair to see how we can kickstart that one. We are to meet today to discuss the issue of the recess. And in that discussion this afternoon, I think some of us are going to say we don't want a recess, or if there is a recess, let the committee work continue. I don't have an answer for you right now in saying that if the finance committee gets up today and says we want a reduction of VAT, we want a reduction of PRB, it's not going to happen in a week.
Okay, Mwashimiwa, as we want to take a break and say goodbye to Hersi, but Hersi has a comment that he'd like to make.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Assalamu alaikum, Mwashimiwa. A very quick one. Very good, thank you. Parliament has a big role to play, and I agree with you. You can do a lot of your deliberations virtual. And I think the country today is in a crisis that National Assembly should actually lead us and sort things, quite a lot of things that be sorted. I'll give you a very simple example. And this is not about tourism only. This is about the entire economy. Today, fuel is one of the biggest components of the cost of doing business in this country and globally.
Yep.
And because of the Suez Canal problem, you can clearly see that fuel is already going up. Over 60% of our fuel actually goes to levies and taxes. And this is actually the duty of Parliament, because Parliament went ahead and increased something like petroleum development levy, which was less than a shilling. It actually 0.40, which was 40 cents. It jumped to 5 shillings and 40 cents. And Mwashimiwa, that particular levy was supposed to cushion Kenyans in times of hiked crude oil prices going up. You're holding, if I am not wrong, close to 11 billion shilling in that fund. Have you guys asked what have we done with that fund? That is what you should be discussing at Parliament. And number two, the thing that you can do overnight, in my opinion, is to reduce these taxes. Because when you look at neighboring countries and you look at other countries, for instance, excise duty alone takes 22 bob out of that. Then you go road maintenance levy, everything put together. Government will take the easy option, increase taxes and levies, hoping you'll collect more. You know what happens? Production slows down because of the high cost of fuel. And what happens? You'll collect less. Suppose these levies were reduced by even 40%. Government may feel that they have lost, but you only lost on paper. Because what will happen is that you are jump-starting the economy. You are helping the economy. That particular business that stopped operating will now start operating. That Kenyan who could not afford something will certainly start buying. And then all of a sudden, we start moving again. Because next door Ethiopia have got when you look at their taxation levels, is so low. That is why my cousins in Moyale are crossing over to Ethiopia to fuel at less than 60 shillings. Ethiopia is not an oil-producing country. It's a landlocked country. Let's go back to the levies and Mheshimiwa. That is within your control because it's the same you people in Parliament who passed those bills. You can go back to Parliament again and change them because today we are in uncharted waters and we can no longer continue operating like we used to. We now have COVID, which does not know any class. It's affecting everybody, and it's just messing up everyone.
Very well said, Mohammed Hersi. Mohammed Hersi is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Asante sana for joining us this morning. We've been having him since 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. We hope to host you again soon. So, Mheshimiwa, you've heard from a member of the industry. And it's true. I mean, this is about taxation.
Yes. Taxation is something that has to be, the beauty about any taxation. It needs to be robust. It has to have some sort of logic to it. You cannot have one tax today, then you stop it, then you start another one. Taxation has a long cycle for it to take effect.
And yet it has been like that with this current parliament and even the previous parliament. So what can be done today to address this issue?
Mheshimiwa, I know it's a difficult question, but let me try and simplify it. Do you know of any country in the world that has actually jump-started its economy by taxing the living daylights out of its people?
No, we have not, and I don't think that. You see, the thing. What I want to say is here, we have been guilty of being captured by executive. I'll be very blunt with you that we are a bit guilty of being captured by executives. We should not have we should not have been called on a special committee meeting in December and reversed all the gains all the tax reliefs that we put together in one afternoon, not even one afternoon, about 20 minutes. Whereas what I'm trying to suggest to you is that we as far as our structure is concerned, we are using very short-term measures, and it is somebody with a short-term vision is leading this economy, and leading it from the point of view of let's reduce the VAT today, and the price of goods will come down tomorrow. It's not true.
It almost sounds as if you're saying your hands are tied, Mheshimiwa, and that there's nothing that you can do. Yes. Is that the case, really, that you're saying that are you shackled to some kind of loyalty to the executive whereby you see things that are even going wrong and you can't do anything about it, really? Is that what we are saying, that members of the National Assembly don't have the might to actually fight for the people?
What we do is we talk. We go and debate. Now we've debated, and I'm saying to you, don't give up, because we have a special economic caucus, which I have more faith in right now than for us to call a full-fledged finance committee meeting. But I have great faith in the finance committee meeting and our chair. And I do know that when we do call that particular meeting, that meeting we will then call the Minister of Finance to come and explain to us. But these are things that will take a bit of time. You know what I would like to say is tomorrow we are going to call for this, and day after tomorrow the VAT is going to go down from 18% down to 13%, and the fuel tax ERB is going to reverse those returns. The Credit Reference Bureau is now going to be given instructions. That is quick. Given instructions that you need to sort yourself out. The banks are now going to play ball with us, with the economy. We are going to have as you said, a certain. There was 10 billion shillings that was put aside also for relief for the elderly and the poor. I don't even know what that 10 billion went. Nobody even bothered asking about it later. This issue that petroleum levy
that's
on
the job of the National Assembly to also audit and find out. Mheshimiwa, thank you for joining us today. We hope to have a conversation again with you shortly.
You must understand the fact of the issue is this. And let me repeat this. Parliament cannot be continued to be taken hostage by executive. I think I've spoken to you off record, and I'm saying that we cannot really be induced to do certain things just because the executive said so. And we're told, okay, let's now go and have a good Christmas. I think this is not possible, and I think we must take the blame for this very strongly and head on. That we have failed, and me specifically as a member of the Finance Committee have failed, and our chair and us, all of us, we feel that. And the issue is, I wish one of the times even this Finance Committee was also put on air.
Mheshimiwa, you're not getting away with this one that lightly. Just admitting and hoping that we'll forgive you and let it go. We will not today. Not today.
Do not forgive us.
We will not forgive you. We'll hold you accountable for this, especially when it comes to next year.
Next year, but let's talk about this year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now. And
you have a role to play. Mheshimiwa Shakeel Shabbir, asante sana for speaking to us. We'll be speaking with you again just to hear what the Finance Committee is planning, whether you've been able to caucus the other members as well.
The moment I put this phone down, I'll be talking to my chair, Madam Mheshimiwa Wanga, and I assure you that you're going to see something is going to happen.
Thank you.
At least from our point of view.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.